Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It is great to be back with you. I am Tom Baker. My co-host, as always, is Jacob Seelman, our Steering Wheel Nation news editor and award-winning journalist. And Jacob, great to have you back. I feel like we have had a lifetime's worth of activities that have happened here over this last week since we did our last show. And unfortunately, we can dive right into the starting line, and we begin with some tragic news out of Texas.
Yeah, we do. It's taken me a couple days to figure out exactly how to find all the right words for this. The Saturday night World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Sprint Car Race at Kennedale Speedway Park in Texas, the weekend prior to us recording this show. Unfortunately not finishing off according to plan. The series got all the way up to staging cars for the B main, and when that was going on, had one car get upside down during the staging process that then led to safety response, and during that safety response, two of the side-by-sides for the series collided, and unfortunately in that collision, Billy Hurt, the longtime fire and rescue director with the ASCS National Tour, as well as the safety director for the Tulsa Shootout and the Chili Bowl Nationals, was killed in that incident. A firefighter in the fire service going back to 1982, more than a quarter century as a career firefighter and EMT, in addition to his work in the motorsports safety realm. It's one of those things that really just strikes you, because all of us in this sport, we go in knowing that those who are competing on the track are putting their lives and their safety in front of them to put on entertainment for us in the media and for the fans. But I don't think we always think about, Tom, that the safety workers that are oftentimes working to keep these drivers safe when things go wrong are in the line of fire as well, as we saw this past weekend. And there certainly were few people as committed to safety efforts in motorsports as what Billy Hurt was. We've already seen a lot of drivers, Connor Wade, Johnny Gibson, both from the Outlaws, offering words on social media regarding Billy. I will be the first to admit I didn't know him quite as well as my dad did. For those who don't know, my dad, Brent, works push truck and safety for the World of Outlaws for a lot of their Southeastern shows, including the Dirt Car Nationals and the World Finals. And he actually worked side by side with Billy Hurt at Talladega Short Track the week prior to Kennedale, where Billy was killed. And what I took away from my dad just is that Billy was so passionate about making sure the drivers he worked with were able to do what they do at their highest ability, but be able to do that safely. That was his mantra. They do what they do for us. It's our job to make sure that they do it safely. And to me, that strikes so strong as to who he was and what he meant to this industry. It's just a really immeasurable loss that I don't know that we'll fully be able to grasp right away, Tom. And it does. You don't expect something like this to happen until it happens.
It always is tough to lose someone, and I think we sort of, if we're a motorsports fan or we're involved long enough, I think we sort of understand that every once in a while you're going to have something happen to a driver.
Yeah.
Right? Or, every once in a while we're going to lose a team owner or someone else important to the sport, but that's going to be through some other cause.
Right.
What I think is that we haven't ever gotten used to the freak kind of tragedies that, you lose an official.
Yeah,
You lose.
sure.
I think we don't see that very often. Thank the good Lord above. And so something like this shakes us because you just don't consider that someone on a side by side or a push truck or a tow truck driver or a race director or someone like that, you just don't feel like that's a particularly dangerous role. And I don't know all of the details of this incident, but obviously those officials were responding to something that happened with a race car, and it's just it's unsettling. I feel like when something like this happens, it's so unexpected. And Billy had such an amazing reputation in the sport, and he was so well liked. This one just comes as a shock because you just never feel like something like this is going to happen, right?
For sure. For sure. You don't expect it, and I think that's what makes it so raw to all of us. I'll add this quote from the World of Outlaws release that they posted earlier this morning before we started taping this show, from Brian Carter, the CEO of World Racing Group. Beyond his professionalism, Billy exemplified what it meant to be a good person, always putting others before himself. He dedicated his life to ensuring the safety of every racer, making their well-being his main priority. And beyond the track, his kindness shone further with every interaction because he was a friendly face to everyone he met. And to me, if we could all strive to be a little more like Billy Hertz, it would make the world a better place. And I think that's what we take away from this, is some of those qualities that maybe we can all instill within ourselves a little bit to carry his legacy and what he meant, not just to the sport, but to really the planet forward a little bit further.
Yeah, and as to what we can make of this, I don't know, really. I mean, I think obviously there appeared to be potentially just some sort of a communications issue, maybe, or maybe it was just two people trying to get to the same place at the same time and they met in a certain spot. I don't know all the circumstances. I know that it's always good to look at something and see if there's a way to prevent it from happening again. I don't know if this is one of those things that you particularly say, well, if we would do this better or different, this wouldn't happen again.
Right.
I think we just all kind of look at what we're doing in general from this and say, okay, can we have a system that would prevent this? It's
Right.
The whole thing is just a little bit, like I said, it's unsettling and uncomfortable just because, we almost, I don't want to say we accept it when it's a driver, but we understand the drivers are putting themselves at risk no matter what we're racing. This is a bit of a different situation. So our thoughts and prayers obviously go out to everybody with the World of Outlaws and the families of those involved. And we're thinking of everyone in this time.
Absolutely. Billy Hurt, just started his 66th year on the planet, and just his presence gonna surely be very, very missed, not just across the World of Outlaws at ASCS, but really the entire motorsports community at large. But as the Outlaws said in their statement of pushing forward and continuing to race this weekend as they head through their first really great plains swing of the season, we continue this show by pushing forward with other things to talk about, and one of those was the Formula One Chinese Grand Prix, where Mercedes is number one to start the season, but I knew it would happen, that Kimi Antonelli would eventually win a Formula One Grand Prix. I don't think I expected it in race 2 of the season, but he just put together an absolute masterclass. Won the pole, got jumped for about a lap by Lewis Hamilton at the start of that race, and then gathered himself up, settled in, and bam, lap 2, he passes Lewis at the hairpin and just controls the rest of that race. He looked much, much, much wiser than the 19 years of age that he is in leading that 1-2 for Mercedes over the weekend. And I'm curious your thoughts, because I feel like we both have largely agreed on perspective as Kimi's come up the ladder. Do you believe he's the next great superstar in Formula One? I mean, we've had the Lando Norrises, the Oscar Piastris of the world. Is Kimi Antonelli that next guy, you think?
Well, I'm not sure that we would consider Oscar Piastri yet to be one of the next great superstars. I think he's probably on his way. I don't think he's arrived yet. With that being said, I think Kimi certainly is a star of the future. I think Kimi, interestingly enough, this is one of those situations where I think timing works in his favor. And I'll explain why. It's because, you know, the new cars and the new package, engine package and all of that for F1 that came in this year has really messed some teams up and it's favored some others. And whenever you have something like this in a series, you're going to get some teams that are going to sort of adjust and catch on to it faster than others. And so for a little while, it becomes like a wild card when you start the season in a situation like this, Jacob. And I think Mercedes has obviously picked this up a little bit quicker than some others have. McLaren's had an awful start to the season.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Red Bull way off this season. And so when you look at it, McLaren and Ferrari have kind of emerged as
Mercedes
and Ferrari have kind of emerged as, you know, the two teams to beat in this early stage. And so Kimi gets to take advantage of that, he and George Russell. And so, you know, I think this win is of a period, but also I think that Kimi certainly has shown the skills to be where he is. He's an amazing young personality, very marketable, a lot of fun. He loves the fans. He's very, you know, humble and down to earth. And I think he and George Russell make great teammates. And so Mercedes benefits from that. And so to answer your question, is he the next big? I think he's one of, certainly. And I feel like this is a great time for F1 because they needed some of these young racers to step up. They need Ollie Behrman to be fifth in the standings right now. You know, they need some of these drivers. And you know what? It was interesting to see Lewis Hamilton back on the podium as well.
I loved it. I loved it. I really did. I thought it was a perfect kind of full circle moment where you have Lewis finally getting his first podium with Ferrari alongside both cars from the team that he made so much of his success in F1 with in Mercedes, and the driver that Lewis has kind of been a mental and emotional mentor for, because he and Kimi, to my understanding, talk quite a bit, you know, when it's not specifically about, you know, race cars, race strategy, etc., you know, as far as what it takes and kind of how you manage being successful at that level. I just thought it was so cool to see that that dichotomy of, you know, those two roads kind of intersecting again with Lewis getting back maybe to prominence. I would love nothing more than to see him win for Ferrari at some point this year, and I think that's certainly possible. But just to see kind of all that come back around in that way in the Chinese Grand Prix, really, really, really cool, I felt like. And we'll stay with the open wheel theme and go real quick to the inaugural Grand Prix of Arlington for the NTT IndyCar Series. And Hello, Kyle Kirkwood. Alex Palou is human and can be beat in a heads-up battle. Kyle Kirkwood is the king of the street courses right now. He has just been outstanding on that style of racetrack. He proved it in Arlington. He chased down outright and passed Alex Palou with a gutsy move in the final corner to win that race. Is Kyle Kirkwood then the chief challenger to Palou, you think? He was a multiple race winner last year, oh, by the way. Or are you pumping the brakes on making any declarations at this point in the year?
I am bringing the car to a dead stop. Not because I don't think he can be. It's because I think it's a little too soon.
Fair enough.
We've had a few races, and certainly Kyle looks impressive at this point. But again, I look at the Penske cars are going to get better. I've got to believe Pato O'Ward is going to get better here. There are a few guys. Again, kind of like in F1, there are a few guys who've just gotten off to a slow start, and I think it's early enough in the season where, if a Scott Dixon or someone, gets hot, they can make up ground. Now, with that being said, I still think that Alex Palou, my news desk sometimes tends to call things early. Not going to call it this early, but the road to the championship goes straight through Alex Palou at this point. So Kirkwood certainly is off to a great start. I love seeing that, but I think there are some other drivers who haven't really gotten into gear yet that could still have something to say as we go forward. Don't forget, we've got this race coming up in the month of May, which is not all that far off. That's pretty big and tends to be wide open in terms of results. And so, I think it's a little early, but happy to see that for Kirkwood. And I will say this. We need more if we're going to do street courses, we need more street courses like Arlington. I have zero complaints, and everyone knows I probably just made half the audience faint when I said that. I'm not a street course guy. I enjoyed that race. I think they need to do something different with pit out with the blend line, because we had a couple of incidents, both of which involved Joseph Newgarden, ironically. That I, were caused just, cars colliding right at that spot. But I thought this was a home run ball, honestly, in Arlington for the first year of it. And it makes me have a little bit of hope that maybe the race in Washington, D.C. later might be good.
My thought to that, as far as the course itself for Arlington, I felt like it was the streets and the course, the layout that they chose was wide enough to make moves work. There was enough straightaway, but it was wide enough in the corners to make some of those gutsy moves like what Kyle made have a higher percentage of sticking rather than just, I'm going to send somebody into the wall by doing this. No, I agree with you, and then really the sentiment that Scott McLaughlin started Friday with, that he called Arlington his favorite street course ever, or words to that effect. It was fantastic, and like you, I immensely enjoyed that race on Sunday, and if we can have more like that, it will make me feel a little bit better about this even split, if IndyCar's going to keep it, with an even thirds of ovals, street courses, and road courses. If we can have more street courses like that, it'll make the whole season a little more entertaining.
Yes, I agree. And with that, we are going to step aside. When we come back, we start the America's Racers segment of the show, and lots to talk about from the world of sprint cars in that segment. And we'll be back with that right after this.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system, Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the show as we now begin the America's Racers segment of our show for tonight. And Jacob, to start off, we're going to go back to Kennedale, but we're going to talk about some happier things.
Yes, we are. Oh, my goodness. I used the word dichotomy earlier in describing Formula One, and that really was what the Kennedale weekend was for the World of Outlaws as well. For as heartbreaking as Saturday was, Friday was absolutely unbelievable. The words I saw on social media a couple times were beyond brilliant. And I'm going to ascribe to that theory because when you have a 35-lap feature on a dirt track with sprint cars and you have 4 different leaders and 6 lead changes in 35 laps, including, by the way, a last lap pass for 2-time defending champ David Gravel to win that race. Oh, man, have you got something good. Christopher Traum was right up there in the mix for a little while, finished 7th in that race. Buddy Kofoid led a couple of times during that race and probably was on the way to winning it until he a slide job on Bill Baylog and he sent himself into the wall there with inside 5 laps to go. Baylog, I thought, probably had it, certainly dominated the majority of that race, led 31 of 35 laps, and just that final corner got him. But Tom, you and I have watched this happen so many times, haven't we, that David Gravel will just sneak right up there and snooker you sometimes, and that's what he did Friday night in Kennedale, 7th race so far of the season for the World of Outlaws, and Gravel gets his first win of the year. 6 different winners, by the way, in those 7 features that are completed, but this win for Gravel, he's now just 1 behind Danny Lasowski, the dude, for 6th on the all-time win list. How impressed are you with what the Gravel era has been over now working year number 3 on the World of Outlaws Tour?
Well, I think we go through periods like with any other kind of racing, don't we? We have eras,
Yep.
the Kinzer era, the Swindell era, right? We have eras, the Lasowski era. We have the Schatz era.
Yeah, the Sweet era more recently.
The Sweet era. And now, of course, it's been David Gravel who's been that guy for the last few seasons. I expect that every year. I mean, David is one of the best to ever do it. And, he's been on an incredible run. And I think to see guys like Buddy Kofoid come in, who's so young and so talented, right? And you just look at this and you say, okay, Gravel is still the guy, I think, but as I look at the roster here and I keep focusing on Schatz as the one driver who really could come back this year strong and contend. But there is so much competition, I feel like now in the Outlaw Sprint Car Series. The teams have gotten better. There are more better teams, if that is proper English. If not, I said it anyway. There's just more capable teams that are closer together. And it isn't because we've made the rules tighter or any of that. It's just because the quality of, the team ownership and the racers has gotten better. So I think this has been, the last year or two has been a little bit different in the Outlaws. I think this year you're going to see 4 or 5 guys go down to the wire again for the title here. And Gravel's certainly one of them.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Buddy Kofoid's been in the mix every single night, or pretty much every single night, save for the one night where they had the engine and the rear end problems. But he certainly has bounced back in a big way. I've been really impressed by what Bill Balog has done so far this season with his team and being up there. He won a couple races last year, but maybe didn't always have the consistency. I think he's shown so far that he could be more of that. And yet again, Tom, another Donnie Schatz from deep charge. If he could ever start in the top 5 in more of these races, Donnie would win a lot already this season. My goodness, this is like the 3rd race already of the 7 where he's come from the 20s to a top 7 or top 8 finish.
Yeah, he's, again, the competition just hopes he continues to start further back in the field. Because like you said, you put him in the top 6 and he's probably going to get the lead by lap 10 and be gone. He's just been incredible. And you're right, Balog is another driver that certainly is, I think, probably overperforming at this point. And that's good to see. And it just shows you the health of the Outlaws Tour is certainly very, very good in 2026. And I'm here for it. I think it's great.
Yes. Now, to the other side of the professional sprint car coin, alongside the World of Outlaws, High Limit Racing got their season underway across the street from the NASCAR set. Yes, I will touch on that briefly in a minute. But first, the High Limit boys finish off a 3-night opening weekend at the dirt track at Las Vegas across the street. 3 different winners in 3 nights. Why am I talking about the NASCAR guys? Well, because 2 of those guys won 2 of the first 3 races. Kyle Larson gets the season opener, no shock. Corey Day gets redemption after battling Kyle Larson in the season opener, no shock. Final night, $21,000 on the line. Big money Aaron Reitzel comes to play and leaves with the big check from the Saturday night show, which, Tom, I don't know that I'm surprised by it, but after the injury that Aaron had to weather and come back from last year, to start the year with a big win like this, I think is a pretty good statement that team has not lost a step at all when it comes to what they can do in terms of that championship battle.
Oh, no question. I mean, if the question is, what do we take from that triple race stand? Well, I mean, it's still Kyle Larson's world and everybody else is living in it.
Yep.
But aside from that, again, Reitzel did an amazing job. Corey Day is a really, really talented young sprint car racer who now is starting to finally get his stock car mentality in the right place. And I think, as we get into the heart of the summer season, I think you're going to see Corey improve over there. But I'll tell you one thing I take away from it is that Ty Gibbs got incredibly fortunate to not have gotten injured. He had a wild ride. And boy, that you just don't want to see that for somebody who's also, a very big part of the NASCAR Cup Series. That's one of those where you love seeing all these guys running dirt and pavement and doing the crossover thing. And I want to see more of it, to be honest, and not less. But that one was a nasty spill.
It was. And speaking of nasty spills, I'll add to that. If we remember a year ago at the dirt track at Las Vegas, Aaron took a rock to the helmet and left the dirt track at Vegas with a broken nose last year. This year, he walks away with the $21,000 grand prize. I would say that's a pretty good 1-year turnaround. But yes, to go back to the Ty Gibbs statement, you're right. Very, very fortunate. That was a pretty vicious crash that Ty endured there, but I feel like prior to that, I feel like we're seeing him slowly get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better each time he's on the dirt as well. It's going to be slow progress when you can't be in it every week, but I've been pleasantly surprised by his progress so far. I also want to give a nod and not forget defending High Limit champ Rico Abreu, who maybe wasn't spectacular. Had a pair of seventh place finishes before a third place run in the final race of the 3 races at Vegas. But he leaves the opening weekend just 16 points behind Aaron Reitzel for the lead. And Tanner Thorson ran second in that Saturday race and is 2 points out of the lead. That's a team that I think could really stir this drink at some point, Tom, that maybe people aren't talking about.
No question. We're going to have to wait and see how that works out, but I certainly think it's possible. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to start our last lap segment by continuing our America's Racers segment. We've got an interview with a winner that we talked about last week. Young Cohen McDaniel got his first USCS win. We're going to hear from him on the other side of the break. We'll be right back.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the show. As we turn toward the last lap segment, we kind of moved the final item from our America's Racers segment into this one. Cohen McDaniel, Jacob, is a 15-year-old racer who lives here in South Carolina and picked up his first USCS 360 sprint car win just here recently, and had a chance at Millbridge Speedway to talk with Cohen about the victory and his plans for the season. Here it is.
It's WN on the road here at Millbridge Speedway, and we are talking with Cohen McDaniel, South Carolina racer who at 15 got his first USCS victory just a week or two ago. And first of all, Cohen, tell us about the win. Where did it happen, and walk us through that first victory?
We were at Deep South Speedway in Alabama, and we were having a really good night. Everything went good for us, and we just really tried to stay consistent that whole night. Didn't change too much, and then I went 2-1 in my heat, and then started the dash, and we made one adjustment for the dash, and we just put new tires on the rear, and we did that, and we were mad fast. Went 5-1 in my dash, started front row, led every single lap of that A-main, and we were just fast. So we had a really good week there. Second night, got fourth, just messed up on adjustments on that A-main. But all in all, that was a really good weekend, especially being the first 360 win for me, really good. So we got a really good car, really good field with that USCS Winter Series stuff. So we can just get these last two races, kind of finish up front, maybe like a top 3 both nights would really have me set for second place in the Winter Series championship. So really just had a good season, our Winter Series season, with Brian Kimenall and my dad working on the stuff, and then me just driving, obviously. But they've done their job, I've done my job, and we're just going to go into the last 2 races just swinging.
Where are the next 2?
They're both in Alabama. One is Extreme Speedway, and I can't remember what the other one is, but I've been to both of them, and I was good at both of them. So we're going to go in here just knowing what we're looking at, know what we are capable of, and we know we're fast. So we have a fast car, and we're just going to try to put it in victory lane one more time.
What are your plans for the 2026 season with the sprint car overall?
We're still looking. We don't know if we want to run the USCS full-time or if we want to go run some USCS and hit up some big races yet. But obviously I'm going to run Millbridge. I'm going to run some of the Outlaw Kart stuff, and then we are going to focus on the sprint car this season. Had a really good night tonight with the micro. Started off rough, qualified 14th, heat race 5-5, didn't move, and we went to this A-main really swinging. Had great setup. Shane and my dad helped a lot. I know Brian had a little bit to do with it, and we just tried to pick off car one at a time, and finally I just had to be a little bit more aggressive and went for big sliders and just did whatever I could to get up there. So found ourselves in the top 5 after starting 14th. So we'll take it. Really good night, really good points night. We're just going to keep going through the season.
Okay, so the key question here is, who helps you make all this happen, brother?
My mom and dad do a lot, obviously, and then Brian coming on with the sprint car, he has helped me tremendously. He has showed me so much. And then Perry's Tire, my gaga at Perry's Tire, she's helped a lot. She pays for a lot. And then McDaniel's Construction, they help a lot. All my sponsors really do so much. Double R, Checkered Star, Raise Wraps. Raise Wraps give me a beautiful wrap. Boss Engines, sprint car. And then really the same sponsors for the micro other than Adams Performance for a motor. So they all help me out so much, and I wouldn't be where I am without them.
Remember the name, Cohen McDaniel, folks. You're going to be hearing a lot more about him in the very near future.
Welcome back to the show, and we're happy to have heard from Cohen. I will tell you this, Jacob. Cohen McDaniel is one of the humblest young racers I've ever met, and that kid can flat drive. He didn't have the best night at Millbridge to open up his season, but there isn't anything I've watched Cohen race that he can't run to the front when it's right.
No, I 100% agree with that, and I think it's telling not just his driving talent, but his adaptability, that he's been able to pick up the 360 sprint car as quickly as he has. I mean, the field that he was in on the USCS side was no slouches. I mean, when you talk about when you talk about some of the racers like a Davey Franick or guys like Brad Bowden, Derek Hagar, I mean this is a really, really strong field that he went out and did what he did at. I mean, you just sit back and to think that he's only 15 is the biggest part of all this. It's absolutely incredible the job that he did and what he's been able to put together in such a short time for himself.
For sure. Yeah, great to see that, and I don't think this is going to be the last time we talk about Cohen winning a race this season either.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I agree. I think it's the first of many for him. Now, talking about the first of many, or in this case, the second of many, the second item in our last lap segment goes to the Pavement late model set and the ASA Stars National Tour, which raced at Five Flags Speedway in Pensacola, Florida, most recently, and that race won, no surprise, by Carson Brown and Anthony Campy, racing the dominators of the ASA Stars Series to this point. When you consider that they went out and did it again, I mean, Carson started 6th, but pretty well dominated, got to the front by the end of stage. He was running second at the end of stage 1, won stage 2, and that was pretty much all they wrote. Won it by almost 2 seconds going away. We all believe right now that it's Carson Brown's series and everybody else is just driving in it when it comes to the ASA National guys, right? I mean, that Anthony Campy team has just found everything that Carson needs right now, and between that, his recent ARCA success, I mean, this is a kid that's flying on top of the world right now.
He is, and people don't know Carson well, a lot of them, but Carson is a two-surface racer. He's just as capable on dirt as pavement. And again, you mentioned his ARCA success. We've seen him go to the next level and run up front. We've seen him contend in multiple different cars and divisions. So no surprise there, but let's not shortchange Anthony Campy Racing. They've been around for a while. And, whether it's Colby the Kid, Colby Howard, or whether it's Carson Brown or whoever it is in those cars, they're always up running for wins. So not surprised at all by this, but Carson Brown has an extremely bright future ahead of him if he just gets the right team or the right person behind him to be able to get to that next level and stick I think Carson's going to be just fine. Again, super humble young kid, works really hard at his racing, and nice family too. He deserves all the success that he gets, and good to see that win for them. And again, not surprising at all. That's one of the top late model teams in the country for that kind of late model racing.
I want to give a quick nod, yes, to the NASCAR set from Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Denny Hamlin cracking the top 10 on the Cup Series all-time win list by winning in Vegas, number 61 for him. But that gives me the pivot point to somebody formerly of the NASCAR Cup Series set in NASCAR Hall of Famer Carl Edwards, who happened to pop up at the Arlington IndyCar weekend, and everybody wondered, huh? Why? Well, we found out why after I did a little research. Carl's 14-year-old son, Michael, has taken to the Toyota GR Cup, or the GR86 Toyota cars, that road racing series, finished on the lead lap in both of those support races alongside the IndyCar ladder, and kept his nose clean and did a solid job. But it was one of those where you just go, oh, so this is what you've been up to with your oldest, Carl. This is fun.
Who knew? I mean, what a crazy thing. I don't think many people knew. I mean, it feels like, first of all, I love the GR86 series. I think that's a cool series that Toyota started a year or two back that really has taken off and given a lot of racers an opportunity to get some bigger level experience, but yet still a fairly affordable series, relatively speaking. So for Carl Edwards to put his 14-year-old son in that series really says something. But, it's incredible to know that there is a, sort of a second-gen racer there now. We don't know anything about what his plans are. It doesn't appear that Carl wants to make a big deal out of it at this point. I don't know what his past experience is, but good for him. And, it gives Carl a different way back into the sport.
Absolutely.
And I think it's cool. It's interesting, Jacob, because when you look at some of these drivers, we all see Harvick and we see Kyle Busch, and, we see Larson with his boy, and, we had Clint Boyer's son, who seems, I don't know if he's even racing anymore, but, haven't seen much from Cash lately. But we see all these big name NASCAR drivers, and here is Carl Edwards, who was a big name NASCAR driver and has been virtually out of the limelight. And then in the last year or so, he started to kind of allow himself back in the door. He was on Dale Jr.'s show. He's done some commentary, for Amazon and whatever. It's cool to see that, and nice to see that there's a second gen there that maybe will just race for the fun of it and doesn't necessarily have to get to NASCAR Cup and be the next something or other.
Right. Maybe it's just no stress, go out, have fun. And if that's the case, more power to him.
Exactly.
We're going to try. I am going to try to follow up on that and see what more we can get, though. I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, it's a great story. And to be quite honest with you, it's one of those stories that just makes you smile, because there wasn't really any big fanfare. All of a sudden we're watching an IndyCar race and Carl Edwards pops up. Who knew? Just a tremendous little story to end the show on, for sure. And with that, we do bring the show to a close, and thank each and every one of you for being with us wherever you tuned us in from. For more great content, you can go to steeringwheelnation.com and at The Wheel Nation on Facebook, X, and Instagram. And of course, our new fan community, a lot of live media coming up. That's InsideGroovePitPass.com. So long, everybody.